Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel, and that little clip you just saw was from Alice's Wonderland, and it was released on October 16th, 100 years ago. So if all goes to plan, this video is going up on the 100th anniversary of the company. So I thought it would be fun to do a list of my top 10 favorite Disney movies. The only requirement is that it has to come from the official Walt Disney Animation Studio. So as much as I adore movies like Who Framed Roger Rabbit and a Goofy movie, as well as the majority of the Pixar movies, they will not be on this list. But even narrowing it down to that, this was really hard for me. I knew my top 5, maybe 6 going in, but it was really tough to get the rest of the slots in there. And also, just remember, this is my own opinion. This isn't like an official, definitive list or anything, so just keep that in mind, especially when we get to number 1. So without any further ado, here are my top 10 favorite Disney movies. Number 10, Cinderella. So one thing that I'll be talking about a lot in this list is the animation itself, which makes sense because we're talking about Disney movies. And with this movie, the animation is just so gorgeous. They just recently put out a 4K version and it looks even better. Out of all the Disney fairy tale adaptations, this one probably follows the story the closest. Sometimes isn't always that great, but here it really works. However, this is at the bottom of the list because the main characters aren't really super interesting. Cinderella is just nice and optimistic despite her situation, which is good, I guess. But there's not really too much to her outside of that. And the prince hardly even has a line. But this is made up for by the side characters. Lady Tremaine is just so evil and horrible despite not having any powers or really authority, apart from just being over Cinderella's head. Mice get a lot of laughs. Lucifer the cat reminds me a lot of Tom from Tom and Jerry. And of course, the two people to steal the show, Drizella and Anastasia. I love these two so much. I love how they're just so horrible, not just to Cinderella, but to everyone, including each other. They just crack me up. I want a show about those two. I love them so much. And if you're ever at any of the Disney parks, try to find them because they're really, really funny there. And apparently somebody who went to the Disney parks one day discovered they are really big fans of Hannah Montana. God, I love the internet. Number 9, Peter Pan. So if Cinderella is every girl's fantasy, Peter Pan is every boy's fantasy. Being able to fly, mermaids, fighting pirates, and living in a world where you can never grow up, which, trust me, when you get to my age, you want that more and more. And of course, you can't talk about Peter Pan without talking about Captain Hook. Again, another great Disney villain. I love villains that can go from being sinister to just whining like a little baby. That's one of the reasons why Lord Hater on Wander Over Yonder is like my favorite cartoon villain of all time. And of course, his scenes are the funniest when he's up against the crocodile and talking with his assistant, Mr. Smee. And speaking of Smee, he's voiced by a guy named Bill Thompson, who is in a movie we're going to talk about later. And I can't hear anything he does in anything without immediately thinking of Droopy.
The poor captain has a splitting headache.
You know what? I'm jolly.
Number 8. Number 8 is actually the oldest movie on the list, Fantasia. This comes with Fantasia 2000 as well, but I also really like Fantasia 2000. So I know it's kind of hard to tell from all the stuff that I have behind me, but I do have a sophisticated side. And part of that is a love for classical music. And I think that animation and classical music really go hand in hand because you can time everything to the music. And that's just what this movie does. It takes beloved classics and puts animation to them. My favorite segments are your favorite segments. Sorcerer's Apprentice, Dance of the Hours, Night on Bottle Mountain. I even love the opening where it's just a bunch of abstract imagery. That's what good music does. Even good music today, when it doesn't have a music video, it just puts images in your brain. And that's sort of what that opening segment was all about. And the animation in this movie is some of the best that Disney's ever done. Some of the biggest, grandest, it took the medium to its highest form. This is one of those movies where I haven't had this opportunity myself, but if you could see it on theatrical re-release, do so. Or even better, a few years ago, I did get the opportunity to see Bugs Bunny at the Symphony, where they play old Warner Brothers cartoons on a big screen with a live symphony orchestra, and that's sort of, I think, the optimal way to watch. Number 7, The Little Mermaid. I mean, do I have to even say anything? It's the movie that saved the studio, pretty much. At a time when Disney was not really doing all that hot and they were trying new stuff that wasn't really working, they returned to their roots doing a classic princess musical with all the characters we love. The princess, the prince, the villain, the comedy relief. Actually, this movie has a few comic reliefs with Sebastian and Flounder and Scuttle, and even to a certain extent the French chef who's just so obsessed with cutting fish.
Les poissons, how I love les poissons! Love to chop and to serve little fish.
And it's also the types of songs that we love. You know, the princess wanting more, you know, the romantic ballad, the comic relief song, the threatening villain song. You know, these are all just so great, and they're some of the best songs that Disney's ever produced. And also return to, you know, that classic Disney style that we love. Because when your last movie looks like this, and then your next movie looks like this, that's a big style change. Plus, this movie's just gorgeous. Like, all the backgrounds in this are so amazing. It really feels like you're under the sea. Yeah, it's a return to form for Disney, the start of the Disney Renaissance, but does enough differently to really stand out. Number 6. Alright guys, get ready to write in the comments what an idiot I am, because I like Frozen. Now just hear me out. Is this overplayed? Yes. Is Let It Go really annoying? Yes. Did it inspire a bunch of terrible videos where Elsa meets Spider-Man? Yes. But everything else about the movie is great. Again, the backgrounds in this are just gorgeous. Aside from Let It Go, all the songs in this are really, really great. But what really sells it for me are the characters. I love the relationship that Anna and Elsa have. You can tell that they really do care about each other. I love that Anna isn't, you know, perfect like most Disney princesses. I love the scene where she wakes up and her hair's all messy and she's drooling. She's quirky and she's awkward. I like that. And I love the relationship that Anna and Kristoff have, you know, sort of poking fun at the Disney cliches while also doing a lot of the Disney cliches. And maybe I am a moron for this, but the twist about Hans being the bad guy, that really got me. That really surprised me the first time I saw this. Partially because he never showed signs of being a bad guy before, which maybe he did like Anna, but with secret motives on the side. And also for the fact that they had a red herring in the form of easily the best character, the Duke of Weaseltown.
Weselton! Duke of Weselton.
That's the best joke in the movie. And speaking of jokes, I think that Olaf is very funny. Yes, he is in a lot of the marketing, and he is sort of all over the place, but much like the Minions in the Despicable Me movies, when used in small amounts and when done correctly, I think he can be very funny. I mean, you can't honestly tell me that somebody just casually looking down at themselves and saying, "Oh, look at that, I've been impaled," is the most hilarious thing in the world. It's interesting because I initially went to see Frozen mainly because I really wanted to see the Mickey Mouse cartoon that played before, which I also really liked. And that's also part of the reason why I'm really looking forward to see Wish. But on top of that, I got a really good movie out of it as well. Number 5, Lilo and Stitch. I don't have a physical copy of it. So right off the bat, you know a movie's gonna be good when it doesn't even have to show you anything and you immediately love it. Because the first few teaser trailers for this movie was Stitch interrupting famous scenes from other Disney movies.
Barely even friends, then somebody bends. Oh,
which also inspired this poster, which I also really like. But on top of that, what makes this movie so great is all the different relationships that come about it. Lilo and Nani feel like a legitimate big sister, little sister duo in their whole situation. You know, it feels very natural and they feel like real characters. The friendship that Lilo and Stitch themselves develop is really strong and feels very real. Jumbo and Pleakley are just really funny. They work really well off of each other. Plus, I just love Stitch himself. I love his voice. He's just so cute.
This is my family. I found it all on my own.
I love this setting of this Hawaiian town. It has like a whole nice aesthetic to it. So yeah, great relationships, wonderful setting, and honestly, out of all of the kid befriends alien movies, which I swear at this point should just be its own genre, this is probably my favorite. Number 4, Alice in Wonderland. Because Alice is such a normal character, you essentially step into her shoes. You are essentially Alice, reacting at the same time she is to all the weird stuff going on and all these crazy characters. And all the characters in this are just so memorable. You know, the White Rabbit, Tweedledee and Tweedledum, the Cheshire Cat, Mad Hatter, the March Hare, and of course the Queen of Hearts, who again is another great villain who can go from threatening to just acting like a child. This is basically like a road trip movie. Basically, you go from one location to another, you just sort of go and stay there for a while and then move on to the next thing, and they don't really come back up until the trial scene at the end, which is just all kinds of hilarious and weird. This is at a time when Disney wasn't too focused on comedy, but this movie is really funny. And speaking of funny, number 3 on this list is the funniest Disney movie, The Emperor's New Groove. This is one of those comedies that tries to cram every type of joke that there is. There's jokes in the foreground, there's jokes in the background, there's physical humor, there's verbal humor, there's fourth wall breaks, there's a little bit of adult innuendo. It's not a lot, but it's in there. It's one of those movies where I forget how many jokes there are. Every time I watch this, I think, well, it's not that funny outside of Yzma and Kronk scenes, right? But every single time, laugh my ass off. And my own personal history with this movie is kind of the ultimate example of how this movie didn't really do so well at the box office, but now everybody loves it, because for the longest time, I didn't even know that there was a movie. I was just familiar with the show, The Emperor's New School, which, from what I saw with that, was just okay. So when I heard that there was a movie, I kind of brushed it off, but everybody kept telling me to watch it, and I finally put it on, and I loved it. It's interesting because if you look into the history of this movie, this was originally supposed to be a much darker, more dramatic movie. I have no idea why they went in the complete opposite direction and went for a comedy road trip movie instead. 2 road trip movies in a row, that's interesting. But I think we're all grateful for it. Number 2. So when people talk about the Disney Renaissance, they usually say either Beauty and the Beast or The Lion King is their favorite. But for me, I'm an Aladdin guy. The relationship between Aladdin and Jasmine was so strong. It wasn't just, immediately meet and get married like a lot of Disney romances. They took the time to get to know each other. Jafar is, once again, a great Disney villain, just in how threatening he is, but he gets a couple laughs in there as well. But really, I'm just stalling, because we all know that the highlight of this movie is Robin Williams as the genie. Robin Williams himself is just such a great comedian, how fast he is and how many different voices he can do. So now he has a character who can literally be anything. So it's genius. And for all the people out there who are like, oh, physical media is dead, who buys Blu-rays anymore? This guy right here, this is the reason you need to get this movie on Blu-ray, because there's a great bonus feature that shows a bunch of his outtakes and how Robin Williams, along with other things, was so good at improv. So he gives you like 4 or 5 different versions of what the genie can turn into for every scene.
No substitutions, exchanges, or refunds.
No substitutions, exchanges, or refunds. But seriously, no substitution, exchanges, or refunds.
No substitutions, exchanges, or refunds. That's all. And don't try to wish for more wishes, because that's a little redundant. Can you say redundant?
And speaking of comedians who are no longer with us, there's also Gilbert Gottfried as Iago the Parrot. Brilliant casting right there. That's the role he was born to play. And you can have your Be Our Guests and your Hakuna Matatas, but for me, nothing beats the Aladdin soundtrack. Arabian Night, One Jump Ahead, Friend Like Me, Prince Ali, Whole New World, these are all just such great songs. So it does everything that the classic Disney formula does to a perfect degree. It has easily the best comic relief character in the world, but it's not number 1. Because number 1 is a little bit more personal to me. But before we get there, I want to list off some of my honorable mentions. And again, this was really hard in a lot of cases for me not to put some of these on this list. So, because I don't know where exactly they would fit on here, I'm just going to list them off chronologically. So, the honorable mentions are Dumbo, Saludos Amigos, Make Mine Music, Melody Time, Beauty and the Beast, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, Hercules, Mulan, Fantasia 2000, Tangled, Frozen 2, and finally, Raya and the Last Dragon. And my number 1 favorite animated Disney movie is... You're not gonna like it. Like, really, you're not gonna like it. Like, seriously, fingers on the keyboard right now, ready to say something like, why would you pick that over everything else? Okay, look. A key point in me picking the stuff on this list is the memories of seeing it for the first time and the want for me to see it again. And for me, nothing fits those 2 categories better than The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. So Winnie the Pooh is one of the first interests I ever had at like the youngest age possible. I still have my baby mobile with the Winnie the Pooh characters on it. That's how far back I go with these guys. Anybody who knows me knows that I love Piglet the most. But I love all these characters. I love Pooh, I love Tigger, I love Eeyore, I love Rabbit, I love Owl. I even love Gopher, even though he exclaims that he's not in the book.
Take it over. Let me know. You got my card. I got the book, you know.
Oh.
And because all these characters are just so likable and nice, you kind of just want to hang out with them. And that's exactly what this movie does. There's no villain. There's no overall conflict. It's just a bunch of stories of these guys living their lives, and they take you along for the ride. And as much as I enjoyed the 2011 Winnie the Pooh movie, which, by the way, if you did not see this in the theaters, you are part of the reason Disney doesn't do 2D animated movies anymore. It just sort of felt like they were doing the original movie on a much smaller scale. This movie only tells 2 stories. Well, this one has a whole bunch, and all the stories here are just so memorable. There's Pooh dressing up as a cloud to try and trick the bees. There's Pooh getting stuck in the entrance to Rabbit's house. There's all of them trying to get rid of Tigger in the forest. There's the Heffalump and Woozles dream sequence. And probably my favorite, I'm not sure why, but it's always been my favorite, is the one where Tigger gets stuck in a tree during winter and the narrator helps him down. And it wasn't until I read the original Winnie the Pooh books by A.A. Milne that I realized that a lot of the stories in this movie, and a lot of the later Winnie the Pooh movies actually, are taken directly from those books. The only thing that isn't in those books is actually my favorite aspect, which is the fact that they acknowledge the fact that they're in a book, and they walk on the letters, and they talk to the narrator and all that stuff.
And so we come to the next chapter in which...
But I haven't finished yet.
But Pooh, you're in the next chapter.
Oh, what happens to me?
I understand that'd be difficult to do in a book, but there's a lot of Disney movies that are based on books, so I don't understand why Pooh is the only one that can do that, but whatever. So yeah, because of this movie, we got all the other Winnie the Pooh movies and TV shows. It inspired, in my opinion, one of the best rides at the Disney parks. It's at both Disney World and Disneyland, so you know it's gotta be good when it's at both of them. And in fact, I believe Disneyland Hong Kong actually has a really cool Winnie the Pooh ride. I've never been there myself, but it looks really nice from the videos I've seen. And if you're still thinking, oh, Winnie the Pooh's for babies, why did you put that at number 1? This movie is one of only 2 Disney movies, the other one being Pinocchio, to have a perfect 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. Think about that. But that's gonna do it for this video. Let me know, do you guys agree with my list? Do you disagree? You know, make your own list in the comments, and if you can't think of your 10 favorites, tell me your number 1 favorite. And hey, the Disney celebration isn't over yet, because along with this year being the 100th anniversary of the company, in about a month or so, it's gonna be the 95th birthday of this guy right here. And if you saw my Bugs Bunny video or my Tweety video, expect something like that. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.